Hello there, it's Friday. Welcome to Granada Reports Live with the latest across the northwest.
Hello, on the programme this evening.
Give peace a chance. The call to the government and rail unions to talk as strikes threaten to hit Eurovision in Liverpool and Wembley's first ever All-Manchester FA Cup final.
We need government, we need the rail operators and we need the unions to get round the table and resolve this quickly because it can be done. It's been dragging on far too long.
Taking shape, one of the most exciting holiday projects in the world. A complete complex of entertainment undercover.
From concept to catastrophe, the idea which led to the creation of Summerland. Another special report as the Isle of Man prepares to mark 50 years since the disaster.
100 years to the day since the first FA Cup final at Wembley. But tonight, the story of bravery behind Bolton's historic win over West Ham.
Well, forget the real Eurovision Song Contest. We're going to be bringing you highlights from Mini Eurovision, where 16 schools from across Merseyside will be singing in 6 different languages, including this beautiful Ukrainian lullaby.
And will it be nice weather for ducks and the rest of us this weekend? The forecast coming up later on in the programme.
First tonight, those calls to the government and trade unions to get around the table to prevent rail strikes affecting 2 massive events for our region.
Yes, rail unions have said they'll strike on Saturday, May the 13th, the day of the Eurovision Song Contest in Liverpool, and Saturday, June the 3rd, the day of the FA Cup final at Wembley, when Manchester City take on United.
The rail employers and government say the unions are deliberately targeting both events. The latest now from our reporter, Tim Scott.
2 more sets of strikes on our railways, one hitting the day of the FA Cup final and the other the final of the Eurovision Song Contest in Liverpool.
The economic impact in terms of the frustration and the disruption to travel plans is massive.
Bill Addy from the Liverpool Big Company, who support hundreds of businesses across the city, wants those involved to resolve their differences and prevent the strikes from taking place.
We need government, we need the rail operators and we need the unions to get round the table and resolve this quickly because it can be done. It's been dragging on far too long. We know the impact it's already had on the economy of the city, but to impact Eurovision, to impact a city that is hosting Eurovision for the UK, but also more importantly, it's hosting it for Ukraine.
The rail delivery group, who represent train companies, said more strike action is totally unnecessary and will only heap more pressure on an industry already facing an acute financial crisis. Senselessly targeting both the final of Eurovision and the FA Cup final is disappointing for all those planning to attend. Regarding the decision to strike on the day of the Eurovision final, the RMT union told us they have no choice. They say that the laws governing industrial action mean that Saturday the 13th of May is the only option available to them. And they point out that their colleagues in Merseyrail, who aren't bound by those laws, they'll be able to run services across Merseyside throughout the whole day and up to 3 a.m. after the event has finished. Regarding the FA Cup final day strikes, Blue Moon podcaster David Mooney says no trains back up north after the match isn't exactly a new thing.
There is an irony in all of this that for years the FA Cup final's been at a time when there's been no trains to Manchester after the full-time whistle, and then the year that it is at 3 o'clock there's going to be no trains to Manchester for the full-time whistle.
Manchester United fan and YouTuber Jay Mottershead told me no trains for United and City fans might actually be a blessing.
United and City fans for the first ever Manchester Derby FA Cup final, it'd be carnage.
So you're in no doubt there would have been trouble on the trains?
Listen, I'm not demonising fans or anything like that, but you know what it's like. They're gonna go down to the game. That could be problematic, but coming back, one team's lost, everyone's had a drink. There's a chance there could be a few arguments, shall we say.
But not all fans feel the same, with the Manchester United Supporters Trust urging the government to resolve the dispute and get the trains back on. As for Eurovision, travel disruption to such a flagship event would undoubtedly tarnish what is supposed to be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to showcase what Liverpool has to offer. Both music and football fans must now wait and see if the deadlock over the strikes can be overcome. Tim Scott, ITV News.
An inquest heard evidence of a catalogue of serious missed opportunities to help a mother of two who took her own life while a patient at a secure psychiatric hospital in Liverpool. Zainab Mohammed died in June 2021 after being admitted to Clockview Mental Health Hospital in Bolton as a voluntary patient. The court heard how staffing levels were frequently unsafe, there were issues with record keeping, and that Zainab had been racially abused by another patient, causing her to feel unsafe. The coroner gave a narrative conclusion.
The inquest into our mum's death has shown fundamental flaws in the way that inpatient mental health care is delivered in this country. Our mum always had time for everyone, no matter what she was going through. Even when she was unwell, she would always focus on whether we were okay.
She loved her music, loved to dance, and would always make you feel welcome. She was beautiful.
Well, Merseycare NHS Foundation Trust have issued a statement saying they will be reviewing the comments from the coroner to ensure patient safety remains their highest priority.
A British woman has been telling Granada reports about how quickly the situation in Sudan turned deadly. Fighting erupted in the African country earlier this month, leading to the UK government arranging flights to evacuate British citizens. Hundreds have now been given safe passage away from the fighting. Mayor Agadir is due back in the UK today and will then head to be with family in Preston.
It was very difficult. No matter how much I explained it, it was very difficult. Even my family couldn't understand it, and my family is Sudanese, but they were in Dubai. So yeah, nobody can understand how it is to actually just wake up and all of a sudden everybody's just killing everybody in the street where you live. It's just horrible.
Alan Henning, the aid volunteer who was murdered by the Islamic State in Syria, has been awarded the freedom of his home city of Salford. Alan was born and lived in Eccles with his family, working as a taxi driver. He travelled to Syria to help the humanitarian effort when he was captured and killed in October 2014.
The RSPCA has released shocking images of a house in Lancashire where dozens of animals were kept in horrific conditions. The charity discovered the 25 dogs, rats and cats at the property in Colne following a call from a member of the public. 8 of the dogs were living in wire cages stacked on top of one another with no bedding, food or water. The animal owners have been given suspended prison sentences and a 5-year disqualification order.
Next, we're returning to our special coverage of the fire which destroyed the Summerland holiday complex in the Isle of Man. It's been 50 years since 50 people died in an incident some Manx people call the forgotten disaster.
Tonight we're looking at some of the events before the fire, why the leisure complex was built and what impact it had on the island's economy. Here's our Isle of Man reporter, Joshua Stokes.
The heat is starting to build up now.
50 dead, 11 were children.
It was just raining fire.
An absolute horror movie.
And nobody knows about it. It's been forgotten. It's the forgotten disaster.
In the late 1960s, tourism in the Isle of Man was in turmoil. After a steady decline in the number of visitors, the island needed reinventing, and Summerland was the answer.
Well, strange as it seems, this isn't the South Seas. It's in a rather bleak part of the Northern Hemisphere. Well, if you haven't already guessed, it's the Isle of Man.
During the 1950s, the Isle of Man holiday trade took a downward turn. After a boom in cheap flights to the Mediterranean, the sights of the island weren't quite as appealing. But in 1966, Douglas Corporation had other ideas, with plans for a new and ambitious leisure complex.
Taking shape, one of the most exciting holiday projects in the world. A complete complex of entertainment undercover to keep Douglas ahead in the holiday field, whatever the weather might do.
But after failing to impress with the concept, local architect John Lomas designed a building that would transform public opinion.
If we can have the roof off a moment. Thank you. Cascading waterfalls will use the cliff face as backing, and there will be terraces of entertainment. Even an artificial beach lapped by the waters of its own blue lagoon.
The tourists were the bread and butter of the island's economy. They accounted for 50% of the island's GDP. If there were fewer tourists, it would have a detrimental effect on the whole Manx economy. But they thought that a wet weather amenity was essential to attract wider age groups.
Dr. Ian Phillips has been studying Summerland since he was a teenager, and for the last 20 years he's been collecting everything he can to learn about the fire, including a rare piece of Summerland history.
Am I right in thinking this is one of the few things that remains that was actually in the fire at the time?
Yes, if you look at photographs of the solarium taken from the roof, the only things that have survived are the metal table legs.
And if we actually look through the brochure, you can see in many ways how the site was sold to people.
Yes, and this is a key photograph showing the solarium floor and the 3 terraces and the hourglass roof. And everything that you can see on this photograph, once the fire had entered the building, everything here was on fire within 10 minutes.
And that's something ingrained in the memory of entertainer Laurie Adam. He was approached by UK leisure group Trust House 40. The company operated Summerland and convinced him to travel to the island to inspect the building.
As we walked up the prom, I thought, oh my goodness, look at the state of that. She says, is that it? I says, that's it, Summerland, it's up there, look. So we walked in, it was a huge glass box, huge. It looks like looking at a ship that's been stripped in half, and I'm looking at all the decks, and I just didn't warm to it at all.
But despite the concern, by the end of July 1971, Summerland was open. And for those living in the Isle of Man, it was long awaited.
There was an air of excitement because this was unique to anywhere in the UK, even in Europe.
Tina was just a teenager, but still has vivid memories of what came next.
I ran over here to this site in total disbelief at what I was seeing. This was our Summerland. This was the venue that we were proud of. And to see it just going up so fast, so quickly, you could see the flames leaping from one pane of hourglass to the next. It was hard to take in. The injustice of what I watched here when I was 19 has stayed with me just as strongly today as it did that night when I knew that fire, it didn't just happen, it was caused.
From its early design, Summerland was an ambitious concept. It was a project with potential, but its plans were flawed, and the consequences were fatal.
Incredible story, and we'll hear more from Josh before the anniversary in August. OK, now for a quick look at what's coming up on the ITV News at 6:30 with Charlene.
Coming up, the chair of the BBC resigns after a Boris Johnson loan row. Richard Sharp broke the rules on public appointments. We'll hear the calls to change the way his successor is picked. New guidance for those who suffer suspected concussion, why grassroots athletes will be told to sit it out for 3 weeks. Plus, leaving no stone unturned, the complex operation to keep up an ancient coronation tradition. Join us for those stories and more from 6:30.
Well, now to a very special anniversary. It is 100 years today since the very first FA Cup final to be held at Wembley Stadium. It saw Bolton Wanderers beat West Ham and is famously known as the White Horse Final after mounted police attempted to control the crowds. But the real story behind the Wanderers' first 11 back in 1923 is relatively unknown, as Paul Crone explains.
It seemed everyone wanted to watch the first ever cup final between Bolton Wanderers and West Ham.
A crowd of 300,000 descended on Wembley, and at kick-off there was still an estimated 10,000 fans on the pitch. Enter the famous white police horse to restore order, and that became the abiding image of the final. But the untold story of that day back in 1923 is far more fascinating, in that over half of the Bolton team just a few years earlier had fought during World War I, serving on the Western Front and enduring the horrors of life in the trenches. From the starting 11 at Wembley, 7 of the Bolton team joined up to fight for king and country. Men like goalkeeper Dick Pym.
He joined up, he was a PE instructor, he was transferred to what was called the East Surreys, and what we do know is that he was repatriated with some kind of a thigh wound, which had to be shrapnel or a shotgun. Now think about this, we've got subsequently the world's most expensive goalkeeper, and he gets shot in the leg.
And then there was this man-mountain Jimmy Seddon at centre-back for Wanderers.
6'2", in those days that was huge. And he suffered from trench foot. 3 of the players joined what was called the Loyal North Lancs Regiment. And again, he subsequently got some caps for England. He played in 3 Wembley Cup finals. And again, if you look back, not many years beforehand, he was back home with something on his foot that could really have not done him a lot of good for his future playing career.
Other members of the team served in the Navy and even the Royal Flying Corps, lives that were a million miles away from the glamour of a Wembley Cup final in front of King George V.
The very fact that they'd gone through all the horrors of that war themselves, and indeed friends and family, and come back and do what they did in 1923 for that first game at Wembley, that first FA Cup final, and to be the first scorers, we are immensely proud.
Historian and Bolton Wanderers fan Jerry Lees believes those who served during World War I and played that day were far from nervous about the final.
Out of, say, 7 or 8 of them, 3 or 4 must, by definition, have seen some pretty horrible things. Even a cup final of that magnitude with that number of people, it's not going to faze you, I don't think.
On the day, Bolton ran out winners 2-0, with goals from David Jack and John Reed Smith. And there's an exhibition detailing that historic game and the history of Wanderers in the town's museum and art gallery. Paul Crone, ITV News.
Yeah, Paul Crone remembering the famous White Horse final. Well, next to Rugby League, and 5 months on from their heartbreaking defeat to Samoa in the World Cup semi-final, England return to the international stage tomorrow. England's men, now captained by Warrington's George Williams, take on France at the Halliwell-Jones Stadium. England's women also face France on the same bill, with St Helens' Jodie Cunningham taking the captain's armband from Emily Rudge, who must now take orders from her best friend.
Yeah, I don't think many people can get Emily to do what they say, to be fair. You know, and I don't need to tell her to do anything. She always leads from the front. But it's a massive honour and obviously really, really proud moment, especially in my hometown, to walk out. You know, all my family will be here cheering me on. But it's an easy job, really. There's so many leaders in that group.
It means everything. It's beyond my wildest dreams to be England captain, and here I am. So, yeah, look, a lot of hard work's gone along the way, a lot of sacrifice, and it all seems worth it now, because this is the best job in the world for me, and England captain, it don't get no better. We're looking forward to the 2025 World Cup, and this is the start of the journey for us.
Getting that winning feeling. FOW, sponsors of the Granada Sport Report.
Finally, to the rugby union team, who get to walk out at Twickenham for a cup final in their very first season. Liverpool St Helens women only formed this season, and on Sunday will compete in the National Cup final against Dings Crusaders of Bristol. And it's a real boom time for the women's section of the club, as on the same day their under-18s are playing in their second cup final in as many years.
Not many people can say they've played at Twickenham, especially at such a young age. We've got our ladies' team's quite young, you see, so there's going to be people that have been saying that they've played at Twickenham, hopefully won the national final at literally 18, 19 years of age.
Oh, it would mean everything. We've trained so hard for it, and I think we really deserve the win.
It's shown how resilient we are, and showing how Northern rugby is flourishing, and especially girls and women's rugby.
Oh, it means the world to them all. They're all really excited to play in the final, but they're really focused and committed. They've got training tonight to run through the last bits, but they're going to bring it home.
Yeah, we wish them all the very best on Sunday, but that is your sport tonight, guys.
It's good news and good luck to both teams. Thanks, mate. Now, we may have mentioned this, but the Eurovision Song Contest is coming to Liverpool.
Is it?
It is.
We may also have said that the city's hosting the event in 11 days' time on behalf of last year's winners, Ukraine.
OK, so here is the new bit. Today, children from schools across Merseyside have staged their very own mini Eurovision.
They've learned songs in different languages, including, of course, Ukrainian. Our entertainment correspondent, Caroline Whitmore, was there.
Well, never mind the real Eurovision Song Contest. Today is all about mini Eurovision, and it's where 16 schools from across Merseyside are all taking part, and it's being held here at the Yoko Ono Lennon Centre in the heart of Liverpool.
Never mind being Eurovision ready. You are mini Eurovision ready. Look at these outfits. They're amazing. Can we just have a moment for Mel's shoes? They light up. Lisa, this was all your idea.
Yeah, I'm Professor in the Department of Languages, Cultures and Film at Liverpool University. And I just wanted to give my students of languages the chance to use those languages in a practical way. So they've been working with 16 local primary schools across the city region, teaching the children how to sing a song in a foreign language. And today, this is the grand finale of Mini Eurovision. Mini means mini in Ukrainian.
I love this.
And so all those schools are here today and they're going to perform for us.
I'm from Resonate, which is the local music hub, music education hub of Liverpool, and myself and other hub colleagues across the city region, we've facilitated some of the music and we've chosen some lovely songs. So we've got French, Spanish, Italian, German and Ukrainian choirs.
I myself have Ukrainian heritage, always been very proud, and even when the war first broke out, the children were instantly, they knew that it would affect me because they knew how passionate I've always been about the Ukrainian culture. So hopefully events like this give us the opportunity to show Ukraine for what it truly is. It's a beautiful nation, it's colourful, it's so colourful, and we always say Slava Ukraini, which is glory to the Ukraine.
It was really nice to see the Ukrainian choir. I think of Ukraine as a wonderful country that have loads of art, and that's why, and really good at singing, and that's why they won last year.
We're very lucky to host Eurovision now because Ukraine did win it, but we can't have it because of the war. I thought it was really good to see all the different languages and how they speak.
Your Ukrainian lullaby was amazing.
What did you think about it when you were up there in front of all those people?
Nervous, and it felt so good then.
Of course I'm proud of my beautiful and talented children. I live in Liverpool 5 years. Half of my choir, it's a refugee. And I'm very happy to be here. It's very great and emotional event.
She got it so right when she said they're beautiful and talented.
Yeah, they were in great voice, weren't they? Well done,
I can't even
everyone.
do Frere Jacques all the way through. Now, for the bank holiday weekend weather, here's Joe with the details.
Have you burnt tea again?
I'm scraping the cooled oil into the bin, not the sink.
Can we eat outside? It's nice.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Thank you. Hello again. A very good evening to you. There hasn't been as much brightness around today here in the northwest as we were hoping for. The best of sunshine this afternoon has tended to be in the west. The next couple of days there should be some sunshine for all of us, but also quite a few sharp showers with some thunder at times over the next couple of days. Warm air feeding up from the south, giving the UK a fairly decent weekend in terms of temperatures, but still that cold air to the north. It isn't going to be scorching here in the northwest by any stretch of the imagination, and in any warm sunshine, quite a few showers will develop on both Saturday and Sunday. But Monday should be drier across the board. Back to this evening, clear skies at first, some cloud building as we go through the night, bit of mistiness perhaps and hill fog, and some shower rain just moving in from the Irish Sea inland through the early hours of Saturday morning. But largely dry conditions and largely free from frost, 5 or 6 degrees tonight, and a very gentle breeze as we start the day tomorrow. The sun will be up tomorrow at 5:40. It sets tomorrow evening at 8:37. Now Saturday could be dry where you are to start with, but probably will be quite cloudy with some mistiness and fog as well. Bits and pieces of showery rain through the morning, and then bright or sunny spells should get out before lunchtime. But with the warmth of that sunshine, quite a few showers will develop during tomorrow afternoon. Some of these heavy and slow moving with a very gentle breeze. But in the brightness it will feel pleasant, 16 or 17 Celsius tomorrow. Looking ahead to Sunday, it's a very similar day. Quite a few heavy downpours, some warm sunshine. Bank Holiday Monday looks dry, but a little cooler. Bye-bye for now.
It's a little bit burnt.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Thanks, Joe. Next week, as the coronation fast approaches, words of wisdom to the King from one of the region's oldest women, Margot, who's about to see in her 5th monarch.
5th monarch, imagine that. Wow.
I'm back with the late news. After news at 10.
For now, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye.